Hello and welcome to our conversation about taking steps to improve equity, diversity, and inclusion in our places of work and communities. It is brought to you by the Greater Parkland Regional Chamber of Commerce and the Community and Social Development Department of the town of Stony Plain. The job ad is a common and key step in the recruitment process, but is the job ad itself problematic and perhaps unfairly or unnecessarily limiting the candidates and the pool for the job? In this session, we talk about job advertisements and how to ensure they're not pushing away candidates. The conversation takes place between myself, Mike, Renata, and Ada of BadaB Consulting. At the end, we'll also take a moment to tell you about the recognition badges that help you take steps and demonstrate your commitment to equity, diversity, and inclusion. Now, let's get talking. You've likely heard the expression, reading between the lines. This is fascinating, that by writing a statement, the author can communicate both by explicitly saying something and by not saying something else or implying that something else.
Right, we see this show up in many ways, like in art when using positive spaces and negative spaces.
Or in legal matters when there is the letter of the law and the spirit of the law.
Exactly. And we also see it in job advertisements and staffing processes. When companies place a job ad, they are creating a meaning by what they say and don't say. Now, there is a full field of academic study called discourse analysis that looks into such things. But for this conversation, I think we should have a practical chat about how advertisements relate to equity, diversity, and inclusion.
So let's dive into that a bit. When I coach organizations about their recruitment processes, I encourage them to use plain, clear language in all of their materials. There is so much room for misinterpretation when jargon, long-run sentences, and ambiguous statements are used. I also think that organizations spend too much time focusing on getting all the details of the job described and listed in the ad. From an equity, diversity, inclusion perspective, you can benefit so much by spending more time on how well the job ad is being understood by the job seekers.
That's right, Ada. Readability is especially important for people that live with some forms of disability and have some challenges processing written communications, such as vision loss, dyslexia, and learning impairments.
And for newcomers to Canada and those learning English as their additional language, there are some tools that can be used for this, like a reading score and analyzer that calculate how easy the job ad is to the average readers, identify complicated words, and advise where the text is likely to lose a person's interest. But you don't have to buy software like this. A simple alternative is to compare your ad to one of the 3 newspapers: the computer paper you will see on the bus or LRT, a local newspaper, or a national paper. They all target different reading levels, and I'm sure that most companies want to target somewhere between the commuter and the local paper. Another way to do this is to simply have your employees whose English is their additional language to proofread your job ad before publishing it.
I like that. Very practical and simple. Another approach I can think of to help improve advertising materials is to look at some of the words used in the ad and whether they are intentional or unintentional coded language about who should apply. There are some software tools available that help identify whether certain words or language patterns appeal to the masculine or the feminine reader, and thus might be subtly influencing people to apply or to avoid the job.
And one other idea to toss into the mix is to look at the sentiment or tone of the advertisement. Is it coming across bossy, formal? Is it relaxed, inviting, or egocentric? Some tones may be more comfortable to some groups, and others may take the tone as a cue of how accommodating or flexible the company might be.
So these are all great ideas: readability, word attractions, and tone. And there's plenty of software and supports on the internet to further explore these areas. Let's wrap up this conversation Ada a few actions to consider?
For sure, two simple things that you can do. Action number 1, run a recent job ad through some software to explore readability, word attractors, and tone. Action 2, ask some of your new hires about their perceptions of the job ad that they applied to. And what did they read between the lines?
That was a pretty good conversation. As we wrap up the session, I'd like to take just a minute to let you know that we offer a badge recognition program that is focused on supporting organizations in the early stages of action on equity, diversity, and inclusion. There are 6 badges available: leadership and capacity, accessibility, staffing, compensation, performance excellence, and learning. For each, we have a list of research-based practical indicators, and you tell us how your organization is fulfilling several of them. Then we have a confirmation meeting and award the badge. There's lots of flexibility built in, and the point is to inform and recognize your first steps on the journey of meaningful equity, diversity, and inclusion. Contact information for Ada, Renata, and myself are on screen. Please reach out to any of us or the corporate office to talk more about equity, diversity, and inclusion and how we can help you. And thanks to our partners, the Greater Parkland Regional Chamber of Commerce and Community and Social Development Department of the town of Stony Plain, who are advocates of equity, diversity, and inclusion.